Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Rushing. I'm a Senior Assistant Director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at Duke. We are waiting for a couple of folks to roll in. And once our attendance levels off, we'll get started. This is about residence life, so all things residence life with Duke. We'll wait a couple more seconds before we get started. I'll do some intros. And then I'll turn it over to my amazing colleagues over in Res Life. Okay, it looks like we can go ahead and get started. Folks are still rolling in. I foresee this being a pretty popular session. Who doesn't want to know more about campus life at Duke? But before we get started, I do want to mention that Duke encourages persons with disabilities to participate in its programs and activities. And if you would like to request accommodation services for an information session, please contact Idella Hackett in our office. Her email address is spelled IDELLA.HACKETT@duke.edu, or you can give her a call at 919-684-0186 to register or to arrange this for a later date. And this session will also be available on YouTube. So feel free to have some comfort in that as well if you do need closed captioning. This session is being recorded and will be available to you on YouTube. Awesome. As I mentioned, I am going to hand this over to my amazing colleagues in Residence Life. Today, we are joined by Jill, Allie, Krista, and Danny. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to stop sharing, so if y'all want to go ahead and jump in. Again, some of us will be in the background to answer any questions you might have as well. So here we go. Here's all things Res Life at Duke.
Thank you. We'll have a quick transition in the slides. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dean Allie Harrison, and joined tonight with Krista Jones from our Housing Assignments team, who will take primary point in the presentation tonight, talking to you about living and learning at Duke, the residence life experience through our Quadex model. And then we are excited that our residence coordinator, Jill Solomon, and our associate dean of residence education, and dean for our West Campus that houses our upper class students, actually, will assist in the chat if you have questions or follow-ups, and they'll moderate kind of a Q&A at the end with any themes that are coming up throughout the presentation this evening. Krista, anything you want to share before we get started?
No, I'm excited to chat with you all tonight. Thank you for the intro, Allie.
All right. So to get us started, to welcome everyone, when we are thinking about your experience and your decision of coming to Duke, we recognize that this is a huge experience. Your residential experience, living on campus, engaging with the life and the vibrancy of campus is what we hope to talk about tonight, and to share a little bit also then about the process and what that looks like. And so students, families, parents, as you have questions, it can be about anything, because we recognize that outside of your academic class experience and the general social fabric of what you're thinking about with your college experience, where you live is going to be a huge component of that. I always joke with folks that even though I work in housing and residence life, I was that student that looked at a residence hall and said, oh no, I can't live there. And, thought about that in my college decision. So we're hopeful that, as you think about this and look at our residential experience from online to whether you're able to make it to campus for a visit, that we're able to answer questions that you may have. So on your tours and the materials that you've probably heard about Duke and the undergraduate student experience, you may have heard this term Quad X. You may be saying, what is Quad X? How does that impact my residential experience? Well, here at Duke, we all collectively within student affairs, within residence life, within our academic units are really thinking about how do we have a residential model that builds on our history and the values and the spirit of Duke. And that's basically what QuadX is. It's looking at how do we have an experience for our upper class and all of our undergraduate students and first year students that really integrates your social and intellectual and residential experiences. And how do we work alongside students to think about a vibrant campus, intellectual curiosity, working with faculty, thinking about your next steps, and doing all of those things in community where you're able to have a sense of belonging with your peers, and building community and lifelong friendships. And we realize that that happens in a lot of different spaces connected to your academic classes, the clubs and orgs that you're going to be a part of, and primarily also in the residence halls that will become your home for your next 3 years here on campus, as we have a 3-year living requirement. And so a big piece within QuadX, like you heard me share in our Residence Life program, is thinking about we don't view our residence halls and our residential experience as just a place that we want you to lay your head down and sleep. We want you to be comfortable enough that you can lay your head down and sleep in our beautiful facilities, but it's also a place where we know that you're going to build long-lasting friendships and relationships, integrate and engage with the many programs and activities that we have here on campus that, again, are going to be intellectually stimulating, but then also just help you build social connections on campus with upper class students, along with, potentially alumni, as well, as we think about kind of these 3 components as part of our program and our residential model.
Thanks, Allie. So let's talk a little bit more about the structure and community of QuadX and how you will live it at Duke. Next slide, Allie, thanks. So we have our East Campus, which is where all of our first year students live. So East Campus is fully dedicated to the first year experience. You have the Lilly Library, the Marketplace, all of your classes will be right outside of your residence halls, all on East Campus. Within East Campus, all of the residence halls are designated and broken up into specific neighborhoods. So each building will have a sister building, and the 2 of you together will really form strong communities that will then transition and carry over and link to a specific West Campus quad. West Campus is where all of our upper class students reside for their time here as they continue with us at Duke. And so you can see that depending upon which building you are assigned to for your first year on East Campus, it will link directly to a quad on West Campus. And you can see those links here. So what's really special and awesome about this model is that you don't have to worry and stress about where you're going to live, what it might look like, what amenities might be there that you're not used to. You will know right away from the moment you receive your housing assignment in the summer exactly where you'll be living on East Campus and then exactly where you'll be living your sophomore year on West Campus. Majority of our buildings on East Campus, the communities are really small. We're talking about usually less than 150 students, which really allows students to form strong, close-knit communities and really build those lifelong relationships that then you can carry with you over to West Campus when you move on as a sophomore student.
So some of the things that we'll highlight about the residential campus experience and things that we are excited for our students who live on campus to get engaged with. And so one being student driven. And so we have a model with our quad in-house councils. And so our quad in-house councils are volunteer student leaders who basically create events to help build community. Many of us on this call, we may have ideas of what students like to do, and sometimes they're pretty great. But many times we want to make sure that the students are giving their feedback, the students are coming with the ideas of what they would hope to do. And then we work as the staff with, and we'll talk a little bit about our staffing model within the Residence Halls and Residence Life, but we work as staff to help our students and our councils bring that vision to life. We aim for a vibrant campus. We want the residence halls, our common areas to be used. We would like students to be out in the quad. And these are things that you're going to see, is particularly if you're able to come to any of the visitation days, when the weather, is nice on campus. You'll see students outside. You'll see one of our many hundreds of student orgs putting on programs and things of that nature. And then also, we really value strong bonds. And so that's really, again, like I talked about earlier, within our QuadX model, a lot of our programmatic efforts start at the core with our students making connections with other students. So making a connection with your roommate, making a connection with your floor mate. That person may not be your lifelong best friend, or a person, that will be in your bridal party years later, but we hope that you're able to make a connection with someone, work through living with someone who may be different than you, maybe someone, you may have never shared a room with someone, and being able to work through what does that mean, because there's life skills in that process. And that's, a thing that we value. And Krista will talk a little bit later about the roommate process. But we also have our faculty who are connected to the halls, that I'll talk a little bit about later. And so creating strong bonds throughout your 3-year residential experience, and if you're a senior, your 4th year, is really important to us, and in the programmatic efforts that we initiate within the halls. So one of the things within our QuadX model is that we talk about, it's not where you live, it's how you live. So as Krista, shared, we do have our connecting quads that really kind of make it an easy, seamless experience of where you're going to kind of map yourself for the next 3 years of being a student here. But a core piece of our residence life model, and within, the larger university, is thinking about the support systems that you have while you're here. Within residence life, every student has an RA, whether it's on your floor or kind of in the area that you would live in. And so your resident assistant is going to be an undergraduate student or a graduate student, depending on where you live, who is going to work to get to know you, understand what your needs are, and really help get you connected. That person is going to host programs in the residential community. They're going to work with the residence coordinator role that I referenced earlier that Jill serves in, to think about ways to support you all as students and residents within our community. We have another role called program assistant. And so that's a graduate student who is really looking at helping and working alongside our councils to help bring their ideas to life. And helping with the logistical things with that, but also helping, our students in those roles think about their own leadership development. We know as Duke students, many of you have served in a variety of leadership roles just to even get here at Duke. But this particular role is now, as you're thinking about the context of being a student leader here at Duke, they're helping as advisors, walking alongside our students as they develop programs and initiatives to help build community. And then every house or quad has what we call a residence coordinator or an assistant residence coordinator. And they they're professional staff members who typically have degrees in college student development, higher education, some counseling or divinity. So ranges, but degrees that are really focused in understanding students, understanding concepts around education, and being able to, at the end of the day, provide an entry point for our students when they may be in need
It looks like Allie might have
Community.
disconnected. Oh, is she back?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, welcome back, Allie.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize there was a lap in internet. But so as I was sharing with the other roles on the first year campus, East Campus, we have faculty and residents who live in the residence halls and work with students, inviting them into their home, hosting programs for students to have an entry point of working with a faculty member who is not necessarily your professor or who's going to assign you a grade, but just to be a faculty member to help you make connections with and help you navigate your experience here. And so again, every house on East Campus will have an assigned faculty in residence.
All right, so I have been seeing lots of questions already coming in that hopefully I will answer in the next few slides for you. And so first, I'm going to talk really specifically about the housing application process and timeline so that you have a really good idea of how assignments are processed and what you should expect when you go through the housing application. So first, the application opens May 1st, and we have what's called a housing portal, and that's where we put all of our forms and applications for students where they can go and access and submit whatever they might need depending on the time of year. So the housing application will open May 1st, and then it closes May 31st. So you've got 30 days to get the application submitted. And then quickly thereafter, and on June 12th, you'll receive your housing assignment and your roommate's name and Duke email address. All of our communication goes through your Duke email. So really start making sure that once you submit that housing application, you're checking your Duke email address regularly, because that's how we'll be communicating all of our pertinent information to you. So how does the housing assignment process work for our East Campus students? So the beauty of it is that all East Campus assignments are completely random. So I saw some folks asking, you get to pick your own residence hall. Do you get to pick your neighborhood? Do you get to pick who you live with? And the short answer is no. You get to let fate take you to the building where you will be residing on East Campus and whomever your roommate might be as well. So neighborhood and room assignments are all random. Your roommates are also randomly assigned based upon lifestyle preferences that you submit on the housing application. So we have specific questions about how clean are you? How do you like to study? How do you like to, what kind of socializing do you like to do within your room? And we use those questions to match up roommates who answer in the same way that you have answered your lifestyle preferences. So, but beyond that, they are all random roommate assignments. You can indicate on the housing application if you would prefer a single room or not. Actually, majority, more than 2/3 of our population typically don't want a single room. They really want that roommate experience, and that's what we really support and hope for as well, to support the lifelong learning. And then we also will ask some gender preferences. So do you prefer your roommate to be of a similar gender to yourself? Or does it not matter for you? You know, what does that look like for you when you're talking about your roommate? We do not have single gendered floors or buildings on East Campus. I saw some questions coming through about that also. So we really support students in getting a roommate, finding a roommate, assigning a roommate that really matches their preferences, and then really encouraging them to build those strong relationships along their floor and within their building, and then their neighborhood, and all the way to their quad on West Campus. So on June 12th, when you receive your housing assignment, you'll know exactly what East Campus house you've been assigned to, what neighborhood you're within, and what West Campus quad you're connected to, along with your roommate. And usually right away, students are getting in group chats with other students who are assigned to the same floor, and are really starting to connect already very early on in June and July. We also have 2 processes that support students in obtaining assignments that are best for them. The first office that supports our housing assignments process is the Student Disability and Access Office. So students who might need specific housing accommodations to meet any medical needs you may have all need to work directly through that office. And then they notify us any kind of housing accommodations you might need, and we work to achieve those for you. And that process is separate from the housing application. So that's something you would need to self-initiate and navigate through Student Disability and Access, but we partner with them really closely. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us about that. And the second process that we have in place to support students is our faith-based housing exception process, which is a part of the housing application this year. So if you have any faith-based practices that might be better supported by a specific housing style or location, then you can request for that exception directly on your housing application.
So a couple of things as we, think about, wrapping up, and thank you, Krista, for sharing some of the things about the process. One of the other things to think about, that you will be able to also find on our website is connected to just information about the room. So when you get that, assignments, you'll get more information from our housing assignments office. And through the first year communication that starts talking about the nuts and bolts to prepare you for move-in. So we're not diving into that part of the presentation tonight in case there's some questions about that. But I will add that you can, if you're interested in what some of our halls look like, if you follow Duke Student Affairs, our Instagram does have some tours of residential facilities and things of that nature, where students are able to kind of bring some of what we're sharing to life as well. But again, as we talk through a little bit and wrap up, as we think about what we name as the benefits of living on campus in our residential program, is again the strength of our community, being able to connect with others on your floor, and then also within the connecting, what we call our connecting houses and quads. And so I'll use Jill as an example, who's on our West Campus. Our West Campus in Cohane quad, which is connected to Blackwell and Randolph. And so in her role, she works closely with her peer in the connecting houses and do weekly, monthly programmatic initiatives to allow first-year students to connect with upper-class students through programmatic efforts, through faculty programming, and things of that nature. So again, as we think about intellectual growth, the opportunity, one, proximity to a lot of our campus resources. That's why we also see a lot of seniors wanting to remain on campus, because it's easy to just roll over and walk to the library and walk to your classes and things of that nature. But again, working with a lot of our programmatic efforts, our students do appreciate that opportunity and the opportunity to engage with each other about, carrying on conversations that may have come from the classroom. I know there was a separate webinar about the focus programs and being able to engage in that in a residential setting. And so that's a huge value for us here, at Duke. Students being able to belong here and bring their authentic selves. And I think between our clubs and organizations, between our on-campus residential experience, we want students to bring their interests, bring their diverse needs, bring, their questions, and build a vibrant campus community by being able to do that. We want to be able to hear from students about what they need. That helps us, become a better community. Career readiness. So again, as we think about how, we are connecting our students, and so we know everybody is at college at the end to learn and grow, but also to think about what are those next steps for them. And so we really think about in our current program, how our resident advisors, how our resident assistants, our residence coordinators help with all of our professional staff and resources, help with career readiness and skill development of thinking about having an engaging and difficult conversations with a roommate connects to a conversation you may have to have as a manager 20 years later down the road or right after you graduate. And so we really do think about living and learning on campus as skill development as well for our students. And again, on-campus fun, classes are hard, we recognize that. And so we want to make sure, again, that we have programs and offerings that support that and your general growth and well-being. So as I said before, our RAs who are trained and first responders to kind of help triage issues and situations to help make sure that all of our residential students are able to get connected as needed. So as we close out and transition shortly to to our Q&A, you know, we have this slide that basically says you, because our residence life experience is going to be contingent on what you want to make of it. You coming in as a student, wanting to get engaged, wanting to get connected, wanting to be part of the Duke campus experience. And we recognize that that's a core piece to build the vibrant campus that we strive for every day. So at this point, it will formally close our presentation, but we will pause and turn it over to our moderators, Jill and Danny, to share if there's any kind of public questions that would be helpful for the group to hear and for us to answer. So please feel free to use this time to throw any more questions that you may have in the chat, and we'll kind of also answer it in that format. Or you all can read them out loud if you would like.
Great. I didn't know if you wanted me to ask in the chat or not.
Oh, sorry. No, yes.
So a good question that I see is what is available in the halls other than just being able to sleep? Like, what can students get involved in to be interactive in the halls?
Jill, would you like to answer that?
Of course. Yes. Hi everyone, my name is Jill Solomon. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the RC over Cohan and Wanamaker Quad, which is on our wonderful West Campus. In our halls, going into your second year, you can apply to be an RA, and we would love to see you. Being an RA is a really amazing opportunity. I was an RA in college, and here it is, a whole new career, very exciting. We also have quad and house councils. So house councils are on our East Campus, and those are elected positions. So in your first couple of weeks here, so if you're ever interested in student government, that is something that I would kind of think about going into this. You get a nice size budget to put on a lot of programs and do really fun things, and might be able to get onto our quad council going into your second year. There's also FIR, so faculty and residents in all of our East Campus houses, and they are faculty members who live in the halls with you and program at least once a week. So you get to connect with them and see a different light of your professors. We also have, like, so your RAs will also do programming at least once a month to, connect community and, just feel connected overall. Your RCs may also do programming as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can get involved. I know on East Campus, there's also an East Campus council that is comprised of a bunch of students that help to put on all first year students to put on programs for East Campus. So if you're interested in those things, there's a lot of ways to get involved in the halls.
The other thing I'll add, just from a facilities perspective, all of our residence hall have common areas. The size and how many vary just kind of based on the building. But those common areas, some are used for study spaces, some are used for TV lounges, activities in the halls, kind of ranging from ping pong to pool tables, and things of that nature that students are able to use. They don't have to reserve them. They can just go and have access into the ones that are in the community that they live in. Some communities may have larger common areas than others, just kind of based on the setup in that structure.
I saw quite a few questions coming in about the focus program and how that impacts your assignment and roommate pairing, etc. So I'll talk really briefly about that. So if you are admitted into a focus program, all of our students within that same program are assigned to the same East Campus house. However, your roommate will not be someone from within the program. And so that is, all of our focus programs operate under that model. However, the building, obviously, that the program is assigned to varies from year to year and by program to program.
And I see a question that actually generally about safety measures for the residence halls. And so what I'll share about that, excuse me, is that all of our residence halls are locked. And so a student would have to have card access to the residential facility. And we don't, on each campus, students will have access to go into other residence halls during certain times of the day, that we do allow that to promote community building, being able to access certain resources. Some of our residential facilities have security cameras near certain entrances, but that's not consistent throughout all of them. But those are some of, the general considerations in regard to how we kind of lock and secure the building. Students do have access to something called the Live Safe app that is sponsored through our DUPD, which is our Duke University Police Department. So they're able to use that app if they choose to access communicating with DUPD about to get somebody to walk with them if it's the evening and they want to walk from one side of campus to the other, or the bus schedules or, different things that kind of serve the Live Safe apps kind of serves as the focal point for a lot of the general safety features and additional resources for our students.
We only offer double occupancy bedrooms and single occupancy bedrooms, and that's for our first year students on East Campus and for all of our quads on West Campus. We do have one apartment style housing option for our juniors and seniors. And I also saw some questions about some folks who might be a Cardea Fellow or a few other fellow or scholarship programs. Depending on the program, you may be assigned to a specific building, but your roommate would be random from someone outside of that fellowship or that scholarship program. And that also varies from year to year in terms of what building you're assigned to. And some more specific questions about focus. So you will not know what residential building your focus program is assigned to. Same thing if you are in a fellowship program or scholarship program, all of that is kept very close-knit within the housing assignments office, but you will learn on June 12th, as long as you apply by the end of May, you'll learn on June 12th exactly where you're living, and all of your other folks within your focus program will be living in that building as well.
Another area just to that other folks may be interested in, a question that came in was connected to, can someone switch where they're assigned after their first year? So we do a couple of things I'll share. At within the first year, if there are roommate issues or things that may arise, we do work with the professional staff, the residence coordinator, and the RAs who are trained in conflict management. We'll work with students to think about doing a roommate agreement, working through whatever those issues are and things of that nature. If we decide then, that a room change would be needed, we would then, make any of those changes. As someone transitions from their first year to their second year, we do have an internal process that students can go through to kind of share if they have found community elsewhere and it doesn't fit within their within the quad that they would be connected to, and that's reviewed by a team, and then we go from there to decide if and when and how students, we call it what kind of essentially moving someplace else to live with a preferred roommate, essentially. So there are avenues should that become something that needs to be discussed for a student.
I've seen a few questions about fraternities and sororities and group housing at Duke. I want to make sure that I clarify some of those. The only group housing we have at Duke is in the focus groups on East Campus and in our living learning communities on West. So we do not have group housing for our fraternities, sororities, or other selective living groups at Duke University.
And folks may be interested in this. There's a question about mail delivery and Amazon packages. So students are able, we do have some Amazon delivery storage lockers on the campus that folks are able to use, and then some within the community if they choose to have something delivered there. But we do have an on-campus mailing system through mail services that students are able to work with as well.
Seems like some folks might have joined a little bit later too, so I'll go over the timeline again of the housing application because that's coming up quite a bit. So the housing application opens on May 1st and it closes on May 31st. You'll be able to access the housing application via the housing portal. We'll provide you with a link to the portal in your Duke email. So make sure you're starting to check your Duke email in May if you aren't prior to that. Or you can also access the housing portal via our website, but we will email you directly once the housing application is live with a link to it. It does not matter when you submit your housing application as long as you submit before it closes on May 31st. So there's no first come, first serve or like priority process. Majority of our students, I was trying to think of a percentage, but certainly probably 97%, if not 98% of our first year students all apply in May, which is great. So everyone who submits that application by May 31 will get their assignment on June 12th. That doesn't matter if you're a focus program student, if you're an athlete, if you're a Cardea fellow, etc. Everyone will get their assignment on June 12th as long as they submit by May 31. And it all can be accessed via the housing portal.
Krista, maybe the one question I see coming up, I think we were able to answer, but is there anything different for international students in our process for housing?
Excellent question. So there's not, in terms of the application and assignment, there's not anything different for international students within our process. There is a specific international student orientation that takes place, and that does invite students to come to campus a day or so earlier than other students. But outside of that, we do not have any assignment specific process different for our international students. I saw a question come in about, when is it best to arrive? Is it better to come in on the 15th rather than the 16th, etc.? We really, really encourage students and their families to arrive on the date that they are designated to arrive on. So what's really magical about East Campus is there are staff and faculty from all over the university that come out to support students and actually move them into their buildings. And so you'll receive communications that Trinity is moving in on this date, on this 2-hour window. Please arrive and plan to move in on that date and time. And we really hold folks to that as much as we possibly can. Obviously, if you have travel needs or some extenuating circumstance, we'll talk through what options we might be able to make available to you. But it really is a magical experience to be able to move in at your designated move-in window onto East Campus. It's really special to see everyone come out and support our first year students and welcome them to the community.
Maybe as we wrap up shortly, but one thing I realized that we did not speak on, and Chris, I can start us off. There's a question just about substance-free living and designated substance-free housing. And so one of the things I will share is that our East Campus, where all of our first years do live, is we consider it's a dry campus. And so there is no alcohol allowed within on that campus within the residential facilities. We do recognize that West Campus, where students go, has a different philosophy, but for East Campus, the entire campus in our residential facilities is upheld to that standard.
And I'll jump in and share. We get this question often about, are students within the same kind of academic program or school assigned together? And the short answer is no. You know, outside of the focus program, all of our assignments from an academic perspective are completely random. So Pratt's not all assigned together, Trinity's not all assigned together, etc. It is random. I also see lots of questions coming in about move-in specifically. And I just want to briefly share. So in July, we will start communicating via email mid-July, all of the specific details you will need to know about move-in. We do a really great job of communicating. We provide maps and kind of whole lists of things to bring, not bring, things that you can mail, when you can start mailing them, etc. So all of that information will come to you in July.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up there. So many great questions and so much good information from our colleagues in Residence Life. So thank you all for giving your time, your evening to share all of these tidbits. Is there a good place for maybe if people have more information, if they would like to reach out to you, what's a good contact info for you all?
Yeah, it's really easy. So you can email us at housing@duke.edu and we will connect back and provide you as much information as we can. If you have, really specific questions, feel free to reach out with them. But usually those questions, if it's about like, do I have carpet in my room? We won't know that until you get your assignment. But some folks are so eager, they want to know that right now. But we really encourage folks to start reaching out with those questions after they get their assignment in June. But certainly if you have questions about the application or anything else about living on campus, we'd be happy to answer those for you. And again, that email is housing@duke.edu.
Awesome. Thank you all. And thank you for everyone for joining us. We hope to see you in the fall on East Campus as well. So please, everyone, have a great evening. And thank you again for joining us today.